Don't tee me up.
They ain't ready for it. They was sleeping on us, yeah, I know that they were snoring. But they waking up the triple doubles, yeah, we scoring. So cold with it, you might need a coat. K-Dot in the booth with Mike, they the goats. We be out here debating, it's all about the conversation. Y'all people be getting mad at the observation that we making. You know it's all fast, there's no cap in the raps or this podcast. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world. Millennials versus the world.
They ain't ready for it, no, but they ain't ready for it. Running so high, yeah, we had to get the song up. Yeah, now we really on the come up.
What up, man? It's the Millennials vs. the World podcast. It's your boy K.Mims.
It's Mike James.
The only spot you get authenticity and entertainment at the same time. So y'all know, man, we love bringing on dope entrepreneurs, dope people in general, especially millennials, man. So super happy to have this young queen killing the game for us on right now. We appreciate your time. Alexis, what up? Appreciate you coming on.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So we can jump right into it. So for people that don't know, who is Alexis and where do you get that entrepreneurial spirit from?
Yeah, so I'm Alexis Davis, born and raised Raleigh, North Carolina. Actually just relocated to Orlando, Florida, which is crazy. This is like the first, y'all are like the first people that I'm telling this, like no one even knows that I'm like not in Texas anymore.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Appreciate that.
I am a social media manager. I run my own company called The Content Plug. Been running it now for almost 4 years, 4 years at the beginning of 2022. And I'm just so excited, a little overwhelmed with everything that comes with being an entrepreneur, but I honestly love it. I feel like I've always wanted to run my own business. Like even like right after I graduated from UNC, I was like, I really want to run my own business at some point. I tried to do it right after I graduated, didn't work out, ended up going into corporate, getting a 9 to 5, but I've always had that spirit just because I love the freedom of being able to do what I want to do on my own time, set my own schedule. Like that's really like the dream for me. So
Sure.
I'm all about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. The content plug. Tell us about it. Why did you create it? Who did you create it for?
Mhm.
Let's dig into that
So
bag.
yes, I was a public relations major at UNC, and whenever I got to Carolina, that's really when social media started to just become like a bigger thing. I
Right.
mean, back in the day, MySpace, Zanga had a Zanga blog. I was that person on MySpace that updated everyone's MySpace profile. I had a new profile or new layout with the music and everything every year.
Right.
So I was that person. And so as time went on, Facebook and all the other apps, I got to college and I was like, I definitely see that there's something there. So I was actually managing accounts when I was in college, on the bus, going to class, tweeting about Black Student Movement meetings, student television meetings, all the different things. And so once I graduated, I was like, I need to find a job in social media because I really need to figure out like what's going on. And that was 2013. So just think about like where social media has grown from that point. And, I had internships, jobs, and I would just always post different like tips and tricks about social media on my Instagram account. And people would always, say, hey, can you like elaborate on this more? Or people would always come to me because they knew that I was the person to go to whenever they had questions about why their Instagram was locked, or if I send this photo to someone, will they be alerted? Like I get some of the craziest questions about social. And so from there, I was like, you know what? I think there's a business there. I had someone reach out, wanted me to run some of his accounts. The next day, I created LLC, and I haven't looked back. So that's really how the content blogger TCP, as I call it, got started.
Oh, super dope. So talk about, and I heard you say about like, you were in corporate America, you went in college and you started to get on that. Can you talk about some of the challenges that you may have like faced to get to this point, or like
Mhm.
even the challenge of just going to a school like UNC that's, a super huge school, in public relations, you start corporate America and it's like, bro, I'm the content plug. I got to get out here. You know what I'm saying? So explain that whole, like
Right.
what challenges you face just to get to where you are now.
And it's funny you asked that because whenever I graduated, I did not have a job. So Carolina, we graduated on Mother's Day. And so that Sunday night, we're all excited. We just graduated. I woke up Monday morning in my mom's house, like, all right, now what? Because I was so focused on getting a job in social media. And I only wanted to be in Washington, D.C. because I interned there the summer before. So I was very like specific. And in 2013, getting a job in social media was very, very difficult because most brands didn't even have accounts in
For sure.
2013. So I was actually trying to pitch my own jobs to some companies like, hey, I see you have, a marketing lead, a CMO, you have a communications lead, who's running your social media? And it was just like super difficult. So I ended up getting an internship in social media and content, which was great. But I really wanted, a full-time job. I ended up pitching my own internship for a tech startup, which
Mhm.
then took me to Austin, Texas. So I've always been like, okay, I'm gonna find a way to get in where I want to get in.
Facts.
But I think working a 9 to 5 is great if you do not want to be an entrepreneur. I mean, I always preach entrepreneurship. Like that's
Mhm.
really what I'm like, everyone should do it. But I also know
Mhm.
that's not possible. Everyone cannot be an entrepreneur.
For sure.
But I think, whenever you do have a 9 to 5, it's important to make sure that you are setting boundaries. And I feel like millennials, I feel like we are so big on like, I'm not doing this. I need
Right.
a
Yeah.
For
a
Yeah.
sure.
day
Absolutely.
off,
Yeah.
or not a day off, but I need a remote work day. Or
Yeah.
like we are very vocal when it comes to the different things that we need to make sure we can get our jobs done. And we're just not really going to take anything that's thrown at us. And that's one thing I'm really happy about when it comes to our generation, especially in the
Absolutely.
working world.
I want to ask this question though. I heard you say like you were pitching your job
Mhm.
to get, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of two-part question. When did companies start realizing social media was a necessity? And then
Mhm.
what made you know, like what made you not give up on knowing social media was the way for you to go and the way to plug yourself in the world? So like those two things. So like when did it take off? And then like why didn't you give up on it? Because you obviously knew something about social media that everybody else didn't at the
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely.
I feel like around 2014, 2015 is when a lot of brands really started to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And because you just started seeing people pop up, like everyone had a Facebook page first, then it went to Twitter, and
Mm-hmm.
then Instagram slowly but surely became a thing.
Right.
But when you think about it, when we graduated from college, like Instagram was not, I look back on my Instagram photos from college and they were totally different than the photos that I'm sharing today.
For sure.
Took a while for people and brands to catch up, but I think once brands realize like, oh, people are on these platforms and they are having fun, they're sharing, friends and family, then of course people started figuring out, okay, there's a way to market this and there's a way to make money off
Mm.
of this. So brands started, of course, jumping on. But I think with me, I was just so fascinated with social media and I quickly realized that I kind of understood it a little differently than most people. So I
Mhm.
was like, there's something there. And I just like kept going until I figured out how I could help people, especially if I'm just having like a regular conversation with someone about Pinterest or about Instagram. And then they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, all right, this is my chance to plug myself, to kind of pitch myself. And living in DC, that's like all I feel like DC is. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
gonna get
Right.
some pushback
Right.
on that. But everything in DC is, how to really pitch yourself, how to get yourself out there. And I'm definitely happy that I spent that first year out of college in DC because I think it really taught me a lot about putting yourself out there, not being afraid to introduce yourself to people because it's really a cutthroat city.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
Absolutely.
very challenging.
Yeah.
So when it comes to entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
The true beauty in it is you having a vision that the average person uh didn't come up with and
Mhm.
sometimes can't comprehend, right?
Yeah.
So the vision that you have for social media and the way that you could use it as a tool, a lot of people probably didn't see, right? So
For
that
sure.
you saw the value in it beyond like the average person. So the same way you saw the value in it, are you able to speak to like the average challenges that like these brands today experience when they're trying
Mhm.
to market themselves using social media?
Yes, and there are so many different things that brands are just not getting right with social. So for one, I think some brands are trying too hard to appeal to certain age groups like millennials, Gen Z, the Black community. Like you see so many brands trying to like use our slang, use our vernacular, and then whenever
Right.
you look at their team, it's like no one on your team even looks like
Appeals
us.
to
So it's
that.
like, where are you
Yeah.
getting this from? Like
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
I see a lot of things like that. And then I also see brands trying to like keep up with the Joneses and they're like trying to compete with other brands or trying to do things that don't really align.
Right.
There's also this like invisible quota that a lot of people have when it comes to social media, that people think, oh, I have to post every single day, or I have to post 4 to 5 times a week. And it's just like, you don't have to do that, because then you start creating a lot of junk.
Yeah.
A lot of brands post all the time, and it's just like, you really do not have to post that much. You don't have to be in our faces that much, because then you start seeing some things kind of get watered down, some things being sloppy, and it's just like, what's the goal here?
Mhm.
But I think overall, this all kind of goes back to the fact that a lot of companies do not have a strategy. They literally just give their phone or their accounts over to an intern or someone who's entry level, and they're like, hey, you run with it and do it. But it's like, you really have to think about who you're actually speaking to, who's your target audience, what do they want, what do they need, what are their pain points, which platforms are you going to be on. I always get people asking me like, oh, so should I be on TikTok? Should I be on this? And it's like, why do you want to be on TikTok? Like, what kinds of content are you going to share there? A lot of times people don't have an answer. So you need to think about which platforms make the most sense for your brand, especially when it comes to your target audience. If you're targeting, let's just say, for example, 75-year-old women, I don't necessarily think TikTok is where you need to be, for example. There probably are some 75-year-old women on TikTok. However, you probably will do better on Facebook or maybe even on Instagram. So there are things like that that you really have to think about whenever you are posting, and brands a lot of times are not thinking about that, especially smaller brands.
And I heard you say that I wanna ask this question. I heard you say like the myth about posting, 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 posting. What's some of the biggest like social media myths that you debunk in your
Yeah.
company daily, or some of the myths that you see all the time? It's just like that's not
Mhm.
effective. Like, but you hear it all the time. What's some of them?
And oh my gosh, I see so many of these, and I see other like social media managers or VAs post about it, and it literally just drives me crazy, because I'm like, that is not true, especially if Instagram has come out and said that some of these things aren't true. So
Mhm.
there's this myth going around that Instagram only shows your content to 10% of your followers. They've already debunked that. They said like that's not true.
Mhm.
They also say if you don't get a certain number of likes in a certain period of time, that they'll push your post down. That's not true. Trying to think what other things that we hear. There's always rumors about the algorithm changing all the time. Like anytime people's posts are performing poorly, they're like, oh, the algorithm has changed. And it's just like, no, maybe people are just not into your posts at the moment. Because Instagram, there's definitely different types of like things you have to really look at whenever you're trying to post. So like, for example, if you have a business account, you should look and see when your followers are online. So if your followers are online at 3 p.m., then you should probably post at 3 p.m. But you see people complain like, oh, I posted at 8 a.m. and no one likes my posts. And then I go on the analytics. I'm like, well, your followers, maybe they're asleep. Maybe you should wait until 3 p.m. like Instagram says. Or maybe your followers don't really like whatever you're posting. So there's always these different complaints or things that people make up as excuses for why their content's not doing very well, instead of them really like asking their audience like, what kinds of content do you want to see, or actually doing the research to figure out why their content's not performing well. But those are just a few things that I hear all the time.
For sure. My bad, Bo. I got another question. Bro. I got another. She keep going and making me want to ask something
Do
else.
you think? Do you
No
think?
problem.
So I heard you talk about earlier, like how people try to like basically like, I don't want to say cultural appropriation. I'm going to say people try to utilize our culture in order to grow things.
Yeah.
And you talked about their team not looking like what it should in order to diversify what they're saying.
Right.
How important was team to you on your journey to get, because you've been running it for 4 years. First of all, hats off to you being able to do something for 4 years,
Absolutely.
stick to it, get it out there. So how important was team for you in your journey, and when did it become important for you?
Right. So I started my business while I still had a 9 to 5. It was like my 5 to 9, as I would call it. So a
Sure.
lot of weekends, a lot of evenings, lunch breaks where I'm like, okay, let me check in on something. So it wasn't until I left my job last year that I started to realize like I needed to build a team,
Gotcha.
because I've always kind of been like, oh, I can do this. But then I would just start getting so many requests and I'm like, okay, I actually cannot do this on my own. So the first person that I hired was a virtual assistant who I absolutely love. She is awesome. So I
Right.
definitely think when it comes to entrepreneurship, you have to realize that you can't do it on your own. You can start looking for people who are able to help you grow. But it's always kind of a trick because you also want to make sure that you are looking for people who you can trust as well and people who do a great job. There's like so many different boxes to check because sometimes, I'll find people and like the first thing they say is, one day I want to, run my own agency or I want to run my own business. And so sometimes that can be a red flag because then it's like, are they going to spend so much time, trying to build their own thing that they're not able to really dedicate to, what I have going on. So those are like some things you kind of have to look at whenever you are trying to build a team.
Mhm.
But from there, I then went on and hired an account manager. And so she helps with a lot of the accounts that I have. And I'm actually in the process of looking for another account manager because I have more requests coming in. And I do have a few graphic designers as well. But I'm definitely trying to make sure that I do have a diverse team because I want to make sure that I am reaching out to, as I'm getting new clients and I'm able to like reach out to different clients that I can show them that I have people on my team that understand, these different cultures, different genders, just everything that's going on. Because I feel like if everyone is the same, then you're kind of, saying the same things over and over, things are not really they're not really tailored to the different clients that I'm working with. So that's like a big thing for me that I'm working really hard to try to figure out. But it is very hard to try to find like people who also know and understand social media and love it as much as I do. Because sometimes I find people who I know will work well,
Yeah.
but then I'm like, I don't know how much they know about social media, honestly. So that's the challenge.
I got a great question. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry, but thinking. So I'm gonna ask this. So just sidebar. Then we gonna get
Yeah.
into it. Preference: somebody that works really well and you could teach social media, or somebody that knows social media really well but may not work as hard.
Oh, I would definitely want to teach someone who's going to work hard because
Mhm.
it's funny because I was going to say the second one because I feel like right now I don't have the time to really train someone like I would want to. And I love interns. I had interns in my first job. I was like 23 years old in charge of the interns. And I was like, what am I doing? I'm basically an intern myself. And I love interns. I love like training people. I love teaching people new things. But I don't think I can do that in my role right now.
Mhm.
So I feel like I definitely would not pick that one, but I
Yeah.
would definitely pick that person if they, can catch on things quickly and
Mhm.
they can, get the job done versus someone who's kind of like a know-it-all and is like not, doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure.
But yeah, I've had to learn so many different things outside of just social media. Of course, like being like a manager, being a boss, HR, finances. There's so many different things that come along with, just posting on social media. And that's what a lot of people think like social media, oh, you're just posting all day, you're tweeting all day. There's way more that goes into it. There's calls, there's analytics, there's customer service, especially if you are, managing accounts for a brand that also interacts with other people, then, sometimes you get complaints, you have to figure out how to solve it. I mean, it's crazy. Like it's so wild. No 2 days the same.
I feel that.
Absolutely. You good? You got them out.
I'm
You got them out.
gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let you. Y'all say.
I'm gonna shoot the next one then. Oh, so just speak to why content period is important. Like
Factual.
why as a brand, like why if I have a brand, like why do I even need content? Like why can't you just like my product? Like why
Yeah.
like speak to it, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So social media has created this like almost marketplace where anyone can market themselves, their services, their products. And so it's really all, I mean, I would say Facebook's fault. It's kind of MySpace. It's really all Facebook's fault as to why we're kind of like in this social media world. But I mean, I'm assuming all, Jack and Mark Zuckerberg were like, hey, we need to have these platforms where people can come in and talk about different things. But when you think about Facebook, Facebook was really just, talking to friends and family. You're sharing, I went to the beach this weekend or I'm getting married, things like that.
Right.
And now it's just this big marketplace where anyone can talk about anything, sell any products. And it's really kind of gotten crazy. But I think when it comes to creating good content, you really need to create things that are going to be valuable to people, things that people are going to be able to use to solve a pain point, like I mentioned earlier, things that are going to entertain people, that are going to educate people, that are going to inform people. Those are kind of the three things. But that's really what makes everything happened. This kind of just, what the 2010s and 2020s are all about now. And I'm actually interested to see what the 2030s, which is so crazy to think about, is
Right.
going to look like when it comes to content. And, and I think the word content is also funny because at one point it was like, oh, just a photo or a post. And
Right.
now it's like content, like everything is content, video, it all just comes into this one word. But that's really just kind of how the world started to go.
Would you deem any piece of content more important than the other?
Right.
Like when you say
So
pictures, photos, videos, whatever the case may be.
yeah, so right now video is definitely like the top. Like anytime my clients are trying to figure out what to do, I have a client that's a realtor, for example. So whenever he's going out to check out a new home, I'm not telling him to send me photos. I'm like, send me a video.
For
So
sure.
do a walkthrough. And then I can take that video and I can make a reel out of it for Instagram. I can make a TikTok video. There's so many different things I can do with it.
For sure.
Especially if he's using like a great camera, I could probably even get some stills from that video. But video content is number one. So like live video is like the best video content or the best piece of content. Then you have regular video, then you have photos and you have posts. But most social media platforms, I know like Facebook and LinkedIn, they actually hate link content that takes people off the platform because the goal for all these platforms, of course, is to keep us there,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is
Right.
my
Right. Right. Right.
theory as to why everyone doesn't have swipe up on Instagram. Because I have just been trying to figure out, I'm like, why won't they just give it to everyone? Like, why do you have to have 10K? And I'm pretty sure it's because if they give it to everyone, then every single story we see will be a swipe up. Everyone's going to their blog, everyone's going to their YouTube channel, and then they're going to see traffic on Instagram go down. That's my theory. They've never said that, but if that ever comes out, remember this. I
I
think
got
Right.
you.
Right.
It's
Right. Right.
recorded.
Right.
It's
Right.
recorded.
but yeah, so there are definitely different tiers to content, and that's why video content they want it to be as long as possible because if I can keep someone on Instagram for or even on YouTube for an hour, think about how many ads they'll probably see versus someone reading a 2 sentence post on Facebook. They may read it, click on a link, and then they don't come back to Facebook until the next day. So
Right. Right. Right.
all about keeping us hooked,
Yeah,
honestly.
for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Quick question. When it comes to being an expert in this particular field, right? How much resistance do you see when you're trying to like provide the formula to a specific like brand?
Mhm.
Like, do
Mhm.
you ever experience resistance because you're a woman? Anything because you're black? Like,
Mhm.
just speak to those experiences, like being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, being an expert. Tell us the trials and tribulations you go through when it's time to like, hey, I got a product. This is the information I have for you. Your
Mhm.
the response you get back.
That's a great question because I remember I had a speaking engagement in Austin a couple years ago,
Mhm.
and it was about creating a social media strategy. Got up there in front of this room full of people, did the presentation. Not even gonna lie, everyone loved it. And I did have someone who
Not a
came
shameless
up to
plug.
me.
Yeah.
She came up to me at the end and she said, "I'm not even gonna lie to you. I did not think I would get much out of this presentation because you are so young."
Oh wow.
And
See.
kind of was just like, okay, like I was nice about it, but it was kind of confusing because I was trying to figure out how old they thought I needed to be in order to talk about social media.
For
Right.
sure.
Like, if anything, you think you would
Right.
want to hear from a millennial or Gen Z. I mean, anyone can talk about social media. You go to conferences, there's people of all ages, but I just thought that was very interesting. So I have definitely gotten a lot of pushback because of my age. I think also some people are confused at the whole how old I am.
Right.
Austin is a college town, so I've had a lot of people who think that I, was an undergrad, and I'm like, no, I did not go to college in Austin.
Right.
So that's been interesting. But I think most of the pushback that I have received is from people who maybe need a bigger team or they don't understand like how large or how small my team is. So some people they want like, a big machine, they want 30 people on an account. And I'm very upfront with that. Like, hey, we're a small team here, it's a small business. I'm unable to give you 24-hour around the clock service,
Right.
which is so different. I mean, there's so many things that I have learned since I left my job last summer because there are things when people email me that they ask questions about, and I'm just like, no, 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 I can't do this, or I'll pass them on to someone else. Whereas last year, I'm like, oh yeah, we can make it work. Like I'll figure out a way. And now I'm definitely like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not on call 24/7, or
Right.
no, this isn't going to work. This price point isn't going to work. So those are things you kind of just have to learn as time goes on. But I sometimes laugh at the questions that I would say yes to back in the day because I wouldn't even look twice now.
I know that's right. Hey, I feel that. I feel that.
That's just growth.
Yeah. So can
So
you speak about when you say growth? Can you speak about like how quick is the social media world evolving? How often is that thing like, oh, this
oh,
was good last week, but now it's like,
oh yeah. And so it's funny because when Mike asked, like, oh, you're an expert in the field, I actually hate calling myself an expert because I feel like social media changes so much that
mhm,
you really can't be an expert. You could go to bed, I could go to bed tonight and I could have read up on everything, read all the help articles, and I'm like, I know something. And then the next day I wake up and everything has changed.
Right.
And the rules change. They add new features. They are, experimenting with different things. There's new features, there's new buttons. And I think that's why a lot of people are very intimidated with social media because, Instagram, you used to just be able to go up there and post a photo. And now you have photos, you have stories, you have carousels, you have highlights, you can add products and people, you can go live. And it's just kind of like, what? There's so many different buttons, and you could literally press one button wrong, like Paul Pierce. So he's
oh God.
and
Yeah.
then you think maybe you're talking to your friends and then you're live to the whole world. So I think a lot of people are just kind of fearful with social media because they don't know, what could go wrong, especially I see a lot of that on Twitter too. When it comes to people just like seeing things come up from the past and like, oh, I didn't know people could search tweets. I'm like, yes, people can definitely search your tweets. So there's just so many different things that come up and change. And it is kind of overwhelming. And especially on like Facebook when they move buttons around and you
Oh
can't
yeah.
find where certain things were.
Mhm.
Um, I think one more thing really quickly, I'm in like a big social media Slack group with like hundreds of other social media managers.
Mhm.
And our like running joke in there is how to add a page admin or how to get added to a Facebook page because it's the most simple like thing.
Right.
Literally, like, someone has a Facebook page and they invite you to, as an admin, but for whatever reason, it is a very difficult process and it changes every so often.
Right.
And it's like one of the first things that anyone who's ever interacted with social media has ever done. But there's always so many questions where it's like, I added this person as a friend. They have my email address. They can't find me. Like, what's going on? And
Right.
it's something so simple, but it takes so long to do. So I can't even imagine all the people who are like, okay, so how do I send a tweet? Or, how
Yeah.
do I hit someone on Twitter now?
Yeah.
It's the Wild West, honestly.
Yeah. See, you know how my questions go, bro. You got it,
But,
bro. You know how my can I we're gonna make this one short and then I'm gonna give Mike the question.
It's fine.
You pick one, do you think one over the other, or you just need to master one? No one, is it better to know all a little bit or one master one of them versus all the platforms?
Hmm. I would think that's a good question. I would think it's good to know a little bit about all of the platforms just because most brands are not just on one platform. And
Mhm.
that's something I don't recommend anyway, because like let's say that you have a brand and you're only on Instagram.
Mhm.
yeah.
If your Instagram account gets shut down or hacked, then what?
Yeah.
How else will you communicate with your followers? So I always, or with your customers, whatever it is, your fans.
Mhm.
So I always tell brands, it's like, okay, have at least two social media platforms, and then also try to have a website.
For sure.
Also try to have a newsletter because once again, if you lose your Instagram page, how are you going to contact people? But I think having a newsletter, which is not social media, but they all somewhat tie into each other, is always helpful because it just goes straight to people's inboxes. So
For
Mhm.
sure.
definitely recommend that.
So the content plug. Just speak to some of your short term, long term goals. Personal and professional. Just let us know what you got cooking up.
Yeah, so by the end of this year, I'm hoping to expand my team a little bit more and bring on another account manager to help me with some of the other clients that I have. And then ultimately, I want to hire someone who can go in between my account managers and myself so that I can kind of start doing more of like CEO type of things. So doing interviews, speaking at conferences, which I love.
Right.
Um, or even if I just really want to clear my calendar and take a day off, do that without having to worry. But right now, I'm definitely not in a place where I can just do that on any day. But those are basically like that's my short-term goal. But then like my long-term goal, I've always wanted to like have like an office that people can come into, clients can come into for meetings. Like I have teams, I have a huddle space, I have a photo booth over there. Like I've always really wanted to have, a fun environment where people can come into work, even though 2020 has kind of changed that a little bit
For
because
sure, for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
we can really work anywhere. But I definitely want to, continue to expand the business to the place where I'm able to help more people, especially Black owned businesses. And a lot of my clients are Black owned businesses. And that's really important to me because I want to make sure that people have the tools and they can afford to speak to their audience wherever they are. And I feel like a lot of people in our community just like they don't know where to start, or, they're looking for people who are going to understand the different products that they're selling. They're not trying to pitch them something that just really doesn't make sense for the community.
Right.
And, I've heard so many stories like this, and I just really want to continue to figure out how I can help small businesses. And, I've taught workshops and courses and all these different things. I just want to continue to keep that going, especially as I grow. Don't want to forget my small businesses, definitely.
For sure, for sure. And before we close out, one last question.
Mhm.
How's the work-life balance? You went from the corporate, the 9 to 5, then the 5 to 9, now full-time content plug. How's that work-life balance?
It's getting better, I will say. I used to work like all the time, and I'm definitely at a place now where I can confidently close my laptop and I'm like, okay, I've done all I can do for the day. Let's just, end it. I will say that it is hard having or being an entrepreneur in a relationship, whether you're in a relationship or you're engaged or you're married, because you have someone else you have to pay attention to. And I always joke with my boyfriend, I'm like, if we were not together, I probably would never sleep because I would probably be on the computer all night. But like he kind of encourages me, like, hey, like let's go watch a movie or let's go on a walk. Or like I probably would be on the computer like 15, 18 hours a day, like no joke.
For sure.
But I definitely have started to kind of set some boundaries for myself. So like on Mondays, I only have meetings with my team. And then I do not take calls on Fridays because I literally just need a day to
Right.
get work done. I need a day to run errands because sometimes the weekend is already booked up with, family, friends, brunch, whatever you want to do.
For sure.
So I've definitely tried to kind of like set those parameters, and I'm trying to get better at making sure that I book a lunch for myself because sometimes I'm just like running in between meetings, trying to eat a sandwich or something. But
Yeah.
it's definitely a challenge, and it's something that I would definitely recommend all entrepreneurs just look at, because otherwise you will literally drive yourself crazy. You will forget to eat. All day will go by and you're like, I haven't had any water. So you just need to make sure that you are, taking care of yourself as well, and just knowing that work can wait. So I think that's like a big takeaway. It's like being an entrepreneur is great, but just do not drive yourself crazy, trying to do everything.
For sure, for sure.
Can't do it alone.
So where can the people find you at? Give them all your plugs, everything. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Give them where they can find you at and everything.
Yeah, so my website is thecontentplug.com, and I'm literally the content plug on all channels. I did that on purpose whenever I decided to start my business. I said, where can I get my URL and all the social handles? So
For sure.
you can find me anywhere. So
That's dope.
That's dope. That's dope.
Dope. So Alexis, thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate
Bless
you.
us with the information. Appreciate you. We know nothing but great things. Millennials versus the world, man. It's your boy K.
This
Mims.
is Mike James.
This dude's crazy. All right, appreciate you.
Don't tee me up.
They ain't ready for it. They was sleeping on us, yeah, I know that they were snoring. But they waking up the triple doubles, yeah, we